Guys, I'm going to make this real easy, simple, and plain. If you have a TV, and this is an LG, and everything has a blue tint on it, no matter what you do in terms of the settings, there's nothing software related that's going on with your TV. Your backlights are bad. And I'm going to walk you through how to replace those backlights. Now, a few things you need. You need suction cups. This is so that you can lift the glass. You need the replacement backlights, which this particular model only has about one or two different types that it uses, which you can find on eBay, Shop Jimmy, TV parts, etc. You need a screwdriver, drill, and some tape. But I'll show you how we can use these tools to get the screen successfully replaced. The backlights successfully replaced. All right, there are screws on the outside bezel. So we're going to go and put our drill here, and all the way around. Now, this particular model is only like 2 or 3 at the top here. You're going to take out everywhere you see that there's a screw. You'll simply take it out. All right, guys, more screws. Now, I want to identify a few things here. This is our power supply. This can kill you. You want to handle this very carefully, grabbing it by the corners, not touching all over the board, because you touch one of these capacitors in the wrong spot, you will shock yourself, or if worse, kill yourself. This is our main board. Not a whole lot over here. As you can see, by the way, I do have this unplugged. Not a whole lot over here that can kill you, but nevertheless, you still just not want to touch it unnecessarily. You have 2 speakers, and this is our Wi-Fi port or cable or adapter piece, Wi-Fi module, if you want to be fancy. And this is just our little sensor here that powers the TV on and off. You also have left and right brackets for the feet or the stand. And this is our, I would guess you would call it a LVDS or a screen cover. And we'll need to take this off as well. So we're going to start by taking off these screws. We're going to take this, set it to the side. Again, not handling all over the place. We're going to touch it. We also have to disconnect this. This is our LED cable that's connected to the backlights on the other side of the TV screen. And we're going to take these just pop right out if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, you can just pop these out and put them up somewhere. Take our screws out here. That comes out as well. We're going to take this off. And I'll show you how to carefully do this off, because if you tear this ribbon down here at the bottom, once you take this shield off, you are screwed. In other words, the screen is no longer effective. In fact, you might as well just throw the TV away or reach out to us and see if we have a screen replacement for you. All right, guys, I want to spend a little bit more extra time on this main board here, main or logic board. I'm going to take these screws out. Might I add, next to LG or next to Vizio, LG is perhaps my least favorite TV to work on. They put screws everywhere. So we're going to flip this little flap right here. This goes to our Wi-Fi module and our power button. It flips up. You can yank it on out, like so. So if you do it here, you're going to want to do it here as well. Left and right side of our screen is powered by these 2 LVDS cables here. Now this one's a little bit tricky. I don't have fingernails. So if you do, then great. If not, you're just going to pinch the sides and wiggle it out. Careful not to rip those pins or bend those pins too bad. Here. You want to set that to the side. Now, let's get this bracket off. We got 2 screws here. 1, 2. This is just a hole. This is the bracket for our mounts. our legs. We're going to set those to the side as well. Now, while I'm on this side, and this is still on the right side, I want to make sure you're aware that although we're going to have to get these screws out eventually, here, we want to focus on these here, our covers. Careful not to strip these because it's really annoying if you do. And they simply unscrew, as you can see. And you're going to do that all along here and all the way down from left to right. All the way down from left to right. But before we take those out, since that step is pretty simple, you shouldn't have too much of a problem doing that. I'm going to take out this Wi-Fi module. One screw is what holds it in place. And it just pops right out. Now here, we have our power button. This usually just pops off. Voila, just like that. Just pops right off. Put that to the side. Yeet. Now, this is what I want you to be aware of here. You got these two cables here, our LVDS cables. The left and right is significant. It even tells you here. So when we put these back on, we want to make sure we do this in the proper way. Just like we flipped it over there on the main board, we're going to flip this little latch here up as well. And carefully take it out. Voila. Do the same thing for the left side. So those teeth to the side. Yeet. Now, let's get to unscrewing some more of these cover screws. All right, so on this particular model here, and most LGs, especially this size, this series, once you get those screws out, you simply have to kind of lightly or gently lift up here. Now, this is really sharp metal. In fact, I've cut myself several times on a lot of LGs. They like to use these metal components. I scratched myself really bad. There we go. There's a nasty boo-boo right there that I've gotten from not being careful and just moving this stuff around and yanking stuff off. It happens. But you want to take this off both left and the right side. But what I want to point out to you is that these cables or ribbons here are really sensitive. If you were to break one of these, you would notice that when you fix the TV, you will have a black bar running down the dead center or whatever this kind of lines up to this side of the screen. You have a solid black bar or discoloration, and it would not be worth fixing at that point. You've pretty much just thrown away your entire TV along with the parts that you've ordered. So you want to be real careful, and we'll spend some more time with that when it comes time to actually taking the screen off or prepping to take the screen off. But in the meantime, just try to keep your hands away from these areas along these strips, these little capacitors, and we'll spend some time on how to carefully move it over about it. All right, so getting closer to the nitty gritty, so to speak, we got to take one of these off. Doesn't matter which one. I like to just pop one off, wiggle it out. That way, when we flip this side down, this won't be attached to it. We can just put a piece of tape. I'll explain later. We're going to do the same thing for the left and the right sides. All right, now we're going back up. We're going back up because I'm going to move this out the way. I know it doesn't make sense now, but I like to minimize my time and do everything I can on this side of the screen instead of just flipping it back and forth, flipping back and forth. Once I get this, once I get the screen off, these clips here, you got one here. They look like plastic. I can't describe it. It looks like a clear plastic and a black spacing here. What we're going to do, we're going to have to twist this and push it through. What this is, it keeps the backlights in place on the other side of the screen. It keeps the backlights attached to the chassis or the frame of the TV. And I already know that this one's going to have here, 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 and so forth. So anywhere you see one of these, we want to twist and unlock. But here's the trick. Underneath this here, I'm guessing it's another one or one or two, because the backlight strips run left to right. That's one, that's one, that's one, that's one. So we need to get that off, along with, just to be safe, this one has these little small clips as well that we need to get off also. So let's play around. Let's spend some time getting these off, and I'll show you how to do the first one. Won't take up too much of your time and get the other ones off, but usually you can spin a Rooney, and as you can see, it pushes down in there. So now we don't have that clear bar keeping that in place. It pushes in there. So let's try another one. And in my case, I'm rotating them clockwise. So we'll do that here, 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 here. Lift this up, which let's lift that up now just to show you what I'm talking about. And that just peels up. And we can always tape this back and put a little light glue down. I normally literally just use the glue or the adhesive that's on the back of it already. Since all it is keeping the power supply or power board from making contact with this metal, that would be really bad. And as you can see, we do have multiple here. There, there. All right, so let's recap. We took the back off. Okay. We realized that, hey, there's really not a lot of stuff going on the back of this TV. Here, we had our power supply, had our main board here, lots of cables going this way, connected to our screen itself. This actually is connected to the screen. Wi-Fi module sat here, speakers, we took the legs off. Then we came back, we detached one of these. Well, actually we had to take the cover off as well. Detach one of these so it's flippity floppy. We took these little clips out, which we've learned that these clips actually keep the backlight strips attached to the chassis of the TV. So right now, those backlights are just flopping around in there, and you may hear it. Well, you will hear some jiggling around because they're not attached to anything. They're just floating back there, just sitting back there and waiting for us to replace it. Now, next, we need to get these rubber covers or protectors. These keep the LVDS. I don't know what this thing is called. If somebody posts down in the comments, teach me and let me know what this actually is called. But this is connected directly to the screen. It keeps your, these things keep this bar here in place to protect it from wiggling around too much and causing all types of shorts. So we essentially just have to pry these down. And from the looks of it, these are just acting as bumpers. So they're only attached here on this model at these little black holders here. Sorry about that. So all you have to do is simply lift up, and now it's free. So we're going to free each one of these guys, and don't panic. It will flop down after you get this second one off. Yep, I don't want to risk breaking it, so let me come around, use two hands, get this boy out the way, and I'm kind of lifting up and in. See if I can zoom in so you can get a better shot. So here kind of acts as a lip here or a holster. So these are perfectly okay to touch, and we're going to let that flop down like this. But once we get it out of our little rubber clips or holsters, we're going to just lift it back up, because what we need to do is eventually get to these screws. But we'll talk about that more later. So I'm going to work my way from left to right, getting all these out of here. All right, so this is the part I probably hate the most. And this is because we have to get all of these screws from here, and these wrap all the way around the TV. And this part just simply sucks. I hate unscrewing. The drill bit I have is too big for this, and I'm also scared of stripping this screw. So I manually unscrew the bezel screws. Now, this is where you may want to have two men to help you flip this TV. We can't I don't normally take the screws off when it's laying on its front because we have to actually flip this on its back. Okay. Now, the purpose of flipping on its back, because we have to then take this bezel off and take the screen off itself, and then the subsequent paper and screen diffusers, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But for the most part, before we even start screwing this, we're going to prop these up to get these out the way. And 2 men would normally, or women, and we need to flip this on this the sunny side up. We need to have the screen facing up, and this needs to be our back. Now, I'm going to leave the bottom hanging off the edge. Reason being, I don't want this to get caught up on my little buffers here, or the table, or whatever you're using. So we're going to flip these up, flip it around, and we're going to leave the bottom edge hanging off just a little bit so these can float or hang freely, because we need to take the screen off. We don't want this to get stuck underneath it. Very tricky procedure. Let me see if I can let you see my method. So before we tackle these screws, we're going to flip it sunny side up. Now, your miles may vary. You may want to do it a different way. This is just how I've learned to do it. All right. I normally grab it from the top in one full motion. You're a teammate. This process will be a lot easier for you. I'm doing it by myself. Don't try this at home. And here we go. Wrap it around. You hear that rattle. Those are our backlights. And as mentioned, and voila. I have my bottoms hanging freely. And now I'm simply going to literally work my way around, unscrewing all of these screws that are keeping this bezel in place. Now, here's a close look at those screws, and I'll just show you what our goal is. I'm going to get it right here, and as you can see, I'm grabbing it by the bezel here, or the chassis, and we're going to, one smooth motion, get that screw out of there, like so. And I'm going to do that. So there's 2 down. I don't know, maybe 30 or 40 more to go. I don't want to bore you, so we'll be back. I want to point this out. You see, the height of the screws located at the bottom of the bezel are taller than the ones all the way around the screen. So don't panic if you get them mixed up. Long ones go at the bottom of the screen, or the bezel that keeps the screen in place. The shorter ones are the ones that go along the edge on the outside, left, right, and the top. Just want to point that out. All right, guys. So by now, you should have someone, or one of your teammates, or one of your friends, your son, mom, daughter, grandma, help you flip the TV. Then you want to pry. You would have unscrewed all of your bezel screws. Now, I did cheat. I forgot to record myself prying the bezel off. All you have to do is very carefully pry the bezel off. And remember, this screen is now free. Can you believe that the hundreds and thousands of dollars these TVs cost, the only thing that keeps this fragile piece of screen in place is a thin plastic bezel? Now, this is where it gets tricky. And this is why a lot of people just would rather not repair their TV. And people tell you, hey, it's cheaper to buy a new one. A lot of times it is. But in our case, since we do it so often here at Monroe Fix It, we got to get down to a science. So I've torn a piece of tape, and the only thing I want to do is get these cables out the way. So I put some tape on the bottom side, and I'm loosely gonna tape it to the screen. I'm gonna do it here, here, and here. Now, the reason I'm doing this is so that when I apply my suction and I lift this glass up, this doesn't get in the way. Because as I remember, you tear this, you're screwed. So we're going to do it 4 times because we took this little LVDS connector here. So we're going to do 2 and 3 and 4. All right. Now, this is the part that separates men from the boys, women from the girls. Lifting this 65-inch screen out of the way onto a clean, flat surface so that you can get to the backlights in question to replace. Now, this is what a lot of people use. I've tried these. I can't remember the weight limit on them, but I've actually cracked 2 screens as a result. What happens is this only makes 1 point of contact. So say for instance, it doesn't adhere or the suction gives for whatever reason, it cracks. It cracks, or in my case, it literally fell. It fell off during my transition from lifting up to placing it on a clean, flat surface. So I'm going to yeet these out the way. Yeet. This is what I use. Now, I've never seen anyone use these before. What these are the suctions that you would use at home or in the shower if you don't have a handle built in. I got these from Harbor Freight for about 15, 20 bucks. And the only thing that has happened is that this wears down from time to time, which, the yellow ones I threw over, they'll do the same thing. But these have yet to fail me. This is what I use. Now, I normally place them counter corner, or as my daughter would say, county corny. 1 here and 1 here. That's my method. Now make sure that where I'm going is really close so that when I lift, I can lift in 1 smooth motion. All right, and here we go. I've placed my my suctions counter corner to kind of distribute that way a little bit. I've locked them in place by pressing down, and my goal is to go from here and pivot here. Make sure my surface is clean. I have a clean blanket here. Make sure it's free of debris, because if you have like weird hairs or fibers in the way, in some cases that can show up when you've done all that work and replacing your screen. So here we go. I'm gonna lift up this screen, pivot, and try to keep my hands as even as possible so I don't bend the screen too much. All right. Well, I'm going back down because I noticed that the top suction cup isn't sticking. So we're going to try it again. Evidently I didn't press enough. So I'm always hesitant to press down too hard. So I definitely don't want to crack that screen. And if there's dust on it or something like that, you definitely want to get that off as well. All right, so I think I got a good suction now. I'm going to try it again. Which is focus on rotating around and pivoting. And voila. Now, as we maneuver around here, we want to make sure that we're staying free of our edges. This is just temporary till we get our backlights in place, and then we're going to pivot this way or pivot another way. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to release my suctions so they don't just suction that screen unnecessarily. And we're going to work on moving this out the way so we can have more wiggle room to work. All right, so if you made it this far, I'd say you're pretty in the clear. Now, this process normally takes about 2 or 3 hours. If this is your first time, it's definitely going to take longer than that. So, what I like to do, I like to mark my corners because there is, in most cases, a left and right side or up and down. These clips here keep our diffuser screens in place, and these little thin paper sheets, you want to be careful with it, not to get too much dirt on it, not to crack the thicker plastic that's on beneath. I like to just faintly mark this corner here, bottom right hand. And you probably definitely won't see it with the camera, but I'm marking this corner so that when I know that this corner here goes to the bottom right of my chassis, I don't want to have this corner over there because things may not line up. In some cases, the left, right, up, and down bezels, or I don't know what these are called. Give me a name for them, hit the comments. In some cases, these are broken in 4 parts, and from the looks here, this is all one piece. So you wouldn't have to break this down. This will literally lift up similar to how a bezel did, which I'm not going to cheat you this time. I'm going to show you how we can lift it. All right, as promised, I'm not going to cheat you. So, as you can see, there are clips about every 6 inches here. And we're just going to see if I can give you some light. We're just going to lift here. Now, don't expect this to come up. Okay, I broke it, but that's no biggie because you still have these other clips. But case in point, these things are real brittle. And although there are still other points where it'll click and snap in place, take a message from me. Again, I don't have fingernails. You just want to pry these up gently, and because the goal is to get this all the way up. You don't have to worry about damaging too much at this point because we've already got our screen out the way and all of our essential components. We're gonna do this all the way around the chassis here, and we're gonna lift this up. All right, so we've walked all the way around, lifting this up, and it is indeed one piece. So we simply gonna take it off, set it to the side because we don't need it. Now, another thing I like to do once I find my marker, I also like to mark the same corner that I marked with my marker, letting me know that the cover will go in this corner here. I like to put a very faint, and I learned this from Big Dog TV Repair. I like to mark the corner of my TV screen or my diffuser sheets to let me know which corner I'm actually going to replace or place back onto it. And mark it here. So I know that I don't get this corner mixed up with that corner diagonal from it. And I'm going to line all these red marks when it's time for reassembly. And it also lets me know that these are literally 3 sheets here. Well, 2 sheets from the looks of it. 1, 2, 3 sheets. So this LG model has 3 sheets, and these all work together. So don't just think you can go with one and whether you put the front on the back or the back of the front. Believe it or not, these are all essential. You want to make sure that your hands aren't too oily. If so, wear gloves while you handle these because you can actually leave markings and that'll actually show through once your TV is repaired. Very annoying, especially if it's preventable. You want to lay this on a flat surface, ideally if possible. Now, I always grab my diffuser sheets along with this thick plastic piece, which again, if you know the name of it, please help me out. I don't know what this is called, but it's really thick. It's really frustrating because it will crack on you. So you want to handle it with care because it's very, very stiff, but at the same time, not stiff enough to support its own weight. So you want to grab it preferably with a teammate to help you handle this and lay it down or sit it straight up so it doesn't bend or fold too much to the point where it cracks. I've even seen some older TVs where this is so brittle, especially on those own TV brands, for instance, that are really old or several years old. They'll literally crack under the weight of your hand, and you're pretty much screwed because this is important as well. It provides support to your TV and helps diffuse some of that light that'll blast through and give you that perfect image. So we're going to take this off, set it aside, and we'll move on. All right, here we go. So we are down to almost the bare minimum. So if you hadn't removed these, this is what it looks like. This is what you would see on, this is what we saw on the back end. You only saw that part. If you hadn't removed this, at this step, you would have had to flip it back over and pry it off. But luckily, because of me, you can thank me later. Because of me, we decided to take it off in one step so we don't have to flip it again, thus saving us time. So we're going to get these out the way. And we also had to take those out because they help keep this sheet in place. Take these out the way, get these to the side. And then what we're going to do, just for entertainment or educational purposes, I'm going to get my backlight tester, which, because we already know the lights are blue, we necessarily don't need, but I want to show you a comparison in how we know for sure that the backlights are indeed bad. I'll show you what a new one should look like, and I'll show you what an old one should look. An old one looks like. All right, so this is a tool that's come in handy time and time again. May not be necessary if you're just doing a one-off repair yourself, but if you plan on repairing TVs more often and being your local TV guy, this is what you'll want to get. Very generic. I think it was about $40 or $50 on Amazon or Shop Jimmy. Doesn't matter which brand. All this does is provide a way for you without having everything connected, and so you can see directly with your own sight visually what's going on with that TV. I'm not too concerned with the reading here. All I want to do is inject some power into this backlight strip. And let's see, positive on positive, negative on negative, and it is blue. And unfortunately, I don't think the camera catches it as it should be, but these things are Smurf blue. Let's look at a new one. White. White. Blue. White. Blue. And I'm willing to bet that each one of these are blue as well. So out of these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 LED bulbs on this particular strip, 2 of which appear to be okay. On this one, our original one that's messed up, maybe 1 appears to be okay. So hence why we're going to replace all of them to be safe. If you do all this work and only replace 1 backlight strip, I would say that you are wasting your time. Just replace them all if you can afford it. There's no sense in just replacing 1. Now, I'm going to zoom in here. Bring the camera down. So here, this is our new one. We have to lift this up and out on both sides. And it pops up like that. And once you do that, you just we have to work our way in lifting this up. I use a knife. On the new backlight strips, there's adhesive, and this peels away, depending on where you get it from, at least the ones I got from Shop Jimmy. Shop Jimmy, I need a sponsorship, bro, holler at me. At least the ones that I got actually have that adhesive on backlight strip on it. Because unfortunately on this model, or fortunately, there's no other way to keep these strips from falling off. Now, we're not concerned about what happens to these strips because they're essentially useless. So we can pry these off any way you can. Just be careful because you can cut yourself along the edge of this chassis here. And you don't want to do that. And don't apply so much force you cut yourself, whatever tool you're using. I use a pocket knife to do this. You can use a heat gun to loosen it up first, or a blow dryer in some cases if you have one that gets hot enough to loosen this up to make your job easier. Me personally, I'm just going to use the brute force method and just use my pocket knife to pry each of the 4 strips up in this model. All right, so we have our new LED backlight strips installed. We've lined up our holes to where they match and they line up. And the reason being is that we have to literally reverse and do everything back the way we had it. We want everything to line up nice and neat, like so. And because we had our little cheat sheet in this corner, letting us know how to line everything up. Don't be surprised you have to press down a little bit on it. And that's quite okay. And I'm going through each bulb to make sure it's flush on there. Because we're not the factory, we're not an assembly line. A lot of this is manual. And use your best judgment to line everything back up. All right, we want to make sure that our paper covering here is lined up as well. Okay. Now we have to put these bad boys back in that were just floating around when we first took the screen off. Now we're going to do the exact opposite, I think. Let's see which way we have to go. Nope. I'm going to do it the same way. We're going to put it in. We're going to put these little clips in here, which is, I'm wasting my time because this is clear. I'm going to put this in first and twist clockwise to lock it in place. Lock, 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 lock. And they do break. If you were to happen to break one, don't panic. I've reassembled plenty of TVs without them. What this does is prevents the TV from having too much pressure applied to certain spots. If, for instance, you were to just rest your hand on it or even use your suction cups, these help you distribute the weight evenly so you don't break the screen. Now, these little white clips here also help with the backlights. That's why it's only 4 of them, keeping those in place. And they go at the top. Now, Shop Jimmy shipped me mines, and I'm pretty sure they're going to ship yours or whoever you buy your backlight strips from without the holes already in place. So I use a little, this is just a small flathead, and I just use it to poke the hole where these clips are supposed to go because they just put one single adhesive strip on top of the, on the back of the backlight. So next we're going to put our diffuser screens back on, make sure those are lined up, put the screen back on, put the screen holder in place, lock it in place, screw it back in, all 30 of screws, put those back in, flip it all the way around, put all of our main board power supply, and do all that stuff. So let's get started. That's your little light to go by. So what I did, I put our diffuser screens, all 3 layers, along with this thick plastic piece that I don't know the name of. I lined up my little red dot. This will be covered by the time we put our screen on and all that. And all these little holes here, you want to make sure that these little metal holders also line up and lock that in place. You don't want that to be bent or folded back because it's just going to throw everything off. And I did that to each one of these. Did each one of these by touch, made sure that they lined up nicely, made sure my corner, this thick plastic piece lined up to our diffuser screens. And now we're going to put our diffuser screen holder or diffuser screen bezel, which I literally just made up a name for because I don't know what the name of it is. And if you remember, I drew on here in marker that you can barely see or can't see, but I see it. And if you would have done it, you would have done the same thing. That way I know that this lines up with this corner. This is the protector or the bezel that our screen actually sits on. The same one where I broke the clip, and you just line it up and you press down all the way around the edge of the screen, locking it in place, at least until we can get our screws in place. And these literally just clip in on this motor. And there we have it. Everything is locked in, nice and neat. Make sure no debris is on here. Again, if you have oily hands or dirty hands, you don't want to do that because you can smear your markings on the screen. And now, the next tricky part, excuse me, as we pivot to put the screen back on. All right, now it is time for as we're on the home stretch, we can still mess up something. The goal is to, again, get our screen back lined up, back in place, the same place we got it, using our suctions to do so. We're going to try to do this in one smooth motion to pivot, making sure our area is free of anything that could cause us to drop or bump that TV. Now I'm literally just going to do a 180 and drop our screen in place. Let's go. Ready? Okay, carefully. And we are well aware that this screen is going to bend a little bit. So to a certain extent, the screens will bend. Even more so if you have a curved TV. What I'm doing now is making sure that they fit within the lips. And I want to show you a close-up of that so you don't make the same mistakes that I made. So, as I was stating, I'm taking these suction cups off. This is our screen. This is the holder for the screen. Right here, let's suction this. Where that flaps up, I've been known to actually let this rest on here. And it should be resting on this little rubbery, soft area here. And what happens is when you put your bezel on and try to press down to lock the bezel in place, you'll be applying pressure to the screen and not our screen support right here. And what happens is you'll be forcing it, and you literally crack that screen, wasting your money, wasting your time and your effort. So don't make that mistake. Make sure it actually sits on this little rubbery, soft lip underneath the screen and not on the edge here. Next, we're going to take our pieces of tape from here, and we want to make sure we leave enough area here. We're going to let that fall all the way down as we get ready to put our bezel back on. Reason being, you wouldn't want to put your bezel on top of your LVDS strip or whatever it's called, your display strips or cables, because you would have been wasting your time. Now, we're going to grab our bezel that keeps our screen in place. So now we have our bezel in place. Now we're going to focus on screwing all of our screws at the bezel, all the way around. It's about 30 screws, takes time, just have some patience. And don't forget, the longer screws go at the bottom. All right, so now that you have your bezel on and all of your screws back in, now you have to carefully, and this is what I recommend, and you can let this hang, but before we flip it, we want to insert these little screen connector clips back in their holsters. I start with the bottom and kind of just carefully pry away from my strip here because I don't want to, let my finger hit this. I'm prying away just so I can catch that. And I'll do the same on this end. And you can just go up. And all I want to do is just make sure this is out the way so when we pick it up and flip it, or when your teammate helps you flip it, this doesn't get caught in the way, caught in your shirt or caught in your sweater, and get rips off, and then you waste all that time. All right, we're on the home stretch. We're going to start by inserting these and clipping them back, which I actually cheated and I already done it. Next, what I want to do, or what I want to recommend, is now putting these back in, our LVDS cables, which they were gracious enough to let us know left versus right. Then we're going to put our covers back on here. Legs, power, main board, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. All of our cabling is going back in place. Finally, the moment of truth. First power up. Get backlights and a display that is not, in fact, blue. Now, there will be some brands and models that screen may go blue, but if that's the case, it's an LED driver. I've never seen it being anything else. And we are good to go. Vibrant color, no blue tint. Have questions? Drop them down in the comments or send us an email at support@monroefixit.com.